it is what it is, you know. It's 32 minutes long, black and white sound. It's good to start from discussing the title because the whole idea started from this phrase. Titles are extremely important. And I'm very sensitive and allergic to bad titles, you know. And I guess that's because I'm really interested in words. So I stumbled across this legal phrase, "c'est action gist," which is a old-fashioned French Anglo construction. Its literal translation into English is "this action lies." And so, yeah, this phrase really interested me in why this action and not that action, or what action. And, because I'm devoted to cinema, it immediately stood out to me as, cinema being a sort of continuous action, or many things that become, or many actions. But it's a little hard for me to trace exactly when the cup came into my mind. It's almost like there's these ongoing threads that kind of strike or intertwine when the moment is right. And that's why, for me, in a lot of ways, I consider it a continuation of my film Indefinite Pitch. Not technically or anything like that, or even narratively, but more just a way of thinking, So Dunkin' Donuts cups, it's a commercial product, a distinct connection to branding, And so the cup that's featured is actually not a Dunkin' Donuts coffee cup, in the sense that it's not purchased from Dunkin' Donuts. It's actually purchased from the supplier that supplies Dunkin' Donuts. So it's the thing before it becomes, but we already have our associations, So I didn't strip the brand from it. It came without a brand. It's pre-brand, yet branded in our minds. I did have a lot of them on hand, and just as objects. And I do remember thinking, would it be possible to make a movie that's just a cup of coffee, almost as a personal dare, just a thing, as simple as this, over a sustained period of time, and still keep it interesting. So that was in the back of my mind well before I discovered this phrase, "this action lies." I wasn't interested in the donut or even necessarily the coffee itself. If I have any beliefs, that's at least one belief I have. There is this sort of infinity within, and it's probably the closest thing to a sort of religious truth or something. And the movie kind of gets into that as well, almost this replacement of religion or something for with just a sort of yeah, deep dive or whatever into the objects that surround us. It becomes a frame-by-frame animation at a certain point. It's all linear in that there's 3 takes on 16mm film. There's no repeating of frames. Each frame is a new frame, is a new moment in its own time. But then when it gets reduced to just frame by frame, it's one frame from one angle, one frame from another, then that literally just becomes an animation. It's weirdly simple, but also kind of complicated too, I think just to think about. And yeah, I definitely was thinking about early sort of apparatus, just the most simple way of creating a sense of motion. And I'm still not, the image, I really am proud of the image, but at the same time, I want it to be a little bit confusing. That's why there was a very distinct choice to have purely circular objects. It's different but the same always, Something that's very important for me is actually not to ever have a kind of a voice of absolute authority. I think maybe the tools I'm playing with are those of authority, being my voice, a male voice, a hovering voice, all of this stuff. What I liked about the Echo is that it creates at all times 3 different voices at every moment. It's the way the decay works. It's like I say, a word, and it just was a way of kind of I think sonically reflecting the space, the 3 walls, the 3 angles, the threes, everywhere. The Trinities. So, but within my movies, like, sure, they're like full of like ideas, but they're ideas that I've attempted to process myself, you know? And like there's many levels of processing in this film in particular. And thus you don't have to necessarily agree, but there's this sort of tension because the movie moves forward in time and is aggressive in a way. You kind of don't have a chance to disagree or agree. You kind of have to go with it as the thinking just proceeds. And that kind of momentum, that forward momentum, is very important. I'm very interested in starts and finishes. And the movie's not designed to be like sampled, you know. The forward momentum, you know, is important. Cinema does do something, but it doesn't necessarily do the thing that we expect it to or want it to. And we bring as much to it as it brings to us, you know. And so especially as it pertains to like the act of like looking and observing, we both can and cannot see past the cup, you know, kind of like multiple perspective or whatever, simultaneity or whatever. It's just like the way it is, which is why I mean the movie gets into this, but I don't really buy into the kind of like cathartic response to the aesthetic image, which you see both in like Hollywood movies in terms of catharsis and stuff, and then also in like a lot of like hardcore experimental film where you're supposed to just sort of like bask in like the wash of an experience, you know. Yeah, I wanted this. I kind of have. I realize maybe it's almost becoming like a habit where I have these like moments where in my movies where everything that's happening kind of steps away from itself and takes like a breath. But in this case, yeah, it mirrored nicely with this sort of reality of being a father now and making work under totally new conditions, and instead of trying to pretend that that's not happening, have it actually penetrate and enter into the realm of ideas. Like I've carefully placed all these pieces, and I like the idea of it just sort of being like, oh, this is not working for a minute, you know. It just has to become something that would almost like entertain a baby, you know, like, and lull it back to calm or something. Yeah, I mean, it provides, I mean, in one sense, it kind of provides a structure for the narrative. Like you kind of, there's like an embedded story. That too is a kind of forward movement where, you know, like X amount of money, X amount of time, you know, and these can be almost like plot points in like this sort of, you know, fragment of one's life. It's like very uncool to talk about money. And I like that, you know. I like that. To me is like, it's actually the opposite for me. You know, I feel like there's sometimes this like attitude where you're, like the artist is like this magical figure that kind of like just delivers, you know, and somehow money makes its way around in like, you know, in these shadowy ways. And I'm very detached from that because I'm fascinated in actually just trying to survive. Like I'm interested in my own like day-to-day existence, and I have a vested interest. So yeah, I mean, for me, the movie is very much about value and about especially branding and the sort of inescapability of it in our culture, and how like we're just like in this like peak branding kind of moment where it's like very hard to locate, I think, the self, you know, and like where does this, like, can you even begin to talk about yourself or an individual experience or taste-based sort of like worldview without already being subservient to some sort of like, you know, category that is marketable or, you know, someone else is profiting off of. Like, can you be free, you know? Like, and I don't have an answer for that at all, but I find it comes up again and again. One thing, just in terms of American law, trademark law, that has always just like driven me insane because I just can't wrap my head around it, is how a product like a can of Coca-Cola or a cup of coffee with the Dunkin' Donuts logo, the cup you buy from Dunkin' Donuts and the coffee you drink, you own that, you own the physical thing, but then they still own the trademark. So you can't necessarily like go and then make a movie that you expect to sell, like, and make a distributor comfortable and stuff, that has like many cans of Coca-Cola in it, where you're just like doing, like, you can't do whatever you want to that can of Coca-Cola because it has a trademark, it has their idea imprinted on it. Even though you own the can, you own everything physical about it, you own the ink, you own the pattern, but you don't own the idea. It's defined reality, and so that's like one form of a lie that like very much persists and everyone accepts as if it's, you know, I'm making a new movie now and it's like full of people just drinking beverages and like normally, you know, like not doing anything weird with them. I've already been asked, like, from people who've seen the like early versions, like, what are you going to do about like that cup? And then I'm like, they're just drinking from a cup that I bought. I spent my money on this like bottle of beer. Like, what's the big deal? The darker thing to me is not so much when they're like, oh, we think you're misrepresenting our product. It's actually when they say, oh, this, you're very well representing it. Like, here's more. And that's something I've been very sensitive to. And I'm not saying I'm above it, even, you know, or even can escape it. But it's important to note, in my opinion. In a way, the movie, I don't have like the answers within the film. Like, the movie is a way of working through these ideas, but I do feel that there is something in this moment where we are obviously, like, politically at large dealing with problems of truth and, like, you know, people claiming that reality isn't what it is and all of this stuff. It's not like a radical thing to say that, you know, cinema lies. Very famous people have said that before many times, and that to me is actually like, it's kind of like power. It's the fact that it isn't reality. It's not to say that cinema should replace reality or that reality should replace cinema, you know, it's just that they are both distinct and they complement each other and can contradict each other, and that's fine. That's why we have it, you know?